A week or two ago, Michael Savage made some comments about creation science and also about evolution. Unfortunately, I can't seem to find any archived versions of his show, so I'll just have to talk you through it. And it's simple enough, really. It'd be nice to hear it from the horse's mouth, but unfortunately, you'll have to just hear it from the horse's other end. Me. Well, he referenced creation science, and it appears that his knowledge of creation science or creationism dates to about the mid-1800s at best. So I would say his knowledge of creationism is up to date only till about maybe the mid-1800s at best. Because he asserted to a caller that since she's a creationist, she believes that God created all the animals just as they are and that they do not change, which is utterly false, period. Now, if you listen to Michael Medved, another Michael, if you listen to Michael Savage, you know that it's very difficult to call his show and disagree with him because basically you'll get in about a half a sentence, and since he has the microphone, he'll cut in, generally asking you another question, so now you have to jump topics or leave off where you were and make another half statement till he cuts you off and another half statement, and it's really not worth much. So anyhow, I don't know what this lady actually believed, the caller, but his assertion is just false. Creationism does not hold that God created all the animals as they are and that they have not changed. For one, it teaches that God created certain basic animal kinds, is the biblical terminology, generally understood to refer to animals that can mate with each other. So, whereas there are maybe 16 different definitions of the term species in scientific literature, kind refers basically to animals that can breed with each other. So anyhow, this means God didn't have to create 1,000 different dogs. He just had to create a basic canine kind. And this canine kind was genetically saturated with enough information to undergo diversity, so that through natural selection and through interbreeding, it becomes all these different kinds of wolves and dogs and what have you. That's because it has enough information to build those various forms. Whereas those various forms lose information through reproduction and through isolation and through group interbreeding. They actually lose information, so that, for instance, you cannot get a Great Dane out of a Chihuahua anymore because the information to make a big dog like that is just lost. Moreover, that right there shows that the creation science view is not that the animals have remained unchanged, but that they do undergo change, but within the kind. And that is actually what we see. For instance, we have ligers, lions and tigers, but lions and tigers are both felines. So that's the point, is his view of creation science, which unfortunately was not able to be corrected because either the caller didn't know better or didn't know how to correct him or just was not allowed to speak enough, is tragically outdated. I mean, tragically outdated. As is, incidentally, his view of Darwinian evolution. Because that's, of course, what he was pushing, is Darwinian evolution is true and creation science is not. Now, let me take a step back and say that he actually stated that, well, you could be a creationist and an evolutionist and just say God created animals and then natural selection took off from there and this and that and the other. And well, I mean, that's just really an easy way out. It's just a generic manner whereby to claim I got all covered, and by making a quaint argument, I can reconcile. But this isn't about argument. This is about science. Now, his view of evolution, I think, was succinctly stated, and I actually had to, I listened to him on the way home, so by the time I got home, I had to turn off the radio. And the last thing I heard him say about it really exemplifies what he means. He said that when he came back from the break, he was going to actually give us proof of evolution by an example of scientists who had changed a fox. Okay, what did the scientists change the fox into, or the foxes that they were experimenting upon? They changed them into a fox. Yeah, so evolution is a fox changing into a fox, a slightly different kind of fox, or a slightly different type of, or species, or morphology, or whatever, a slightly different fox. Now, this is not evolution, because evolution is supposed to be on the origin of species. So however you define species, what the scientists would have had to do is to turn the fox into a very different type of organism, and that they did not do. However, this shows us that the scientists were manipulating kinds. The creation sign is biblical kind, because they were able to take a kind of animal and change it into a slightly different kind of the same animal, or into a slightly different animal of the same kind. And this is not to mentioning that even his example is not evolution, because evolution is blind, it's unguided, and it has no goal. What he was talking about is intelligently designed experimentation carried out by trained scientists using engineered laboratory equipment, specifically setting out to manipulate genetic information towards the intended end of changing the fox a little bit. So in other words, this was not evolution. This was intelligent design. So on any account, creationism, intelligent design, Darwinian evolution, Michael Savage just failed all around, which is really sad, because he himself is a kind of a scientist. He's been involved in the field of science for decades. He's written a lot of scientific books, and unfortunately, in this case, he has absolutely no idea what he's talking about. And it would serve him well, by the way, to allow callers to challenge him a little bit more, because this would not be a difficult problem to solve. I mean, I've done it in a few minutes here. I could have easily called him up, and if he would have given me just a couple of minutes, I could have explained these things. It's very simple to point out the error and propose a solution, but some people, especially when they feel like they're perched atop their imitation ivory tower, they just will not allow criticism. They will not allow their views to be challenged, so that he is actually left thinking that scientists setting out to manipulate the genetics of a fox to change it into a slightly different kind of fox is Darwinian evolution. That's just patently false, as is the claim that maybe dates back to the 1800s that creationism holds that all the animals were created as they are and do not change. Both of these claims are just absolutely inaccurate.
Just complete blissful leopard-spotted ignorance.